hardest time you've had to hold back tears? When I found out what Teddy Bear Tuesday was. My economics professor was this soft-spoken guy in his 40s with gentle gray eyes that seemed to hold secrets. Professor Martinez had a quiet way about him that commanded respect without ever raising his voice. Every Tuesday morning, without fail, he'd shuffle into our lecture hall carrying this worn brown teddy bear and set it carefully on his desk during lectures. The bear was obviously old, its fur matted from years of handling, one ear slightly torn, and its black button eyes dulled with age. Students would whisper and giggle behind their textbooks, exchanging glances and pointing discreetly at the stuffed animal that looked so out of place among the economic charts and financial reports. But Professor Martinez would simply arrange the bear just so, making sure it faced the class, then launch into his lesson about supply and demand curves as if having a teddy bear as a teaching assistant was the most natural thing in the world. I finally worked up the courage to ask him after class one day. "Professor Martinez," I began hesitantly, "I'm curious about the teddy bear you bring on Tuesdays." He paused while gathering his papers, then looked up at me with that same gentle expression. But there was something deeper there, a flicker of pain that crossed his features so quickly I almost missed it. He just smiled sadly and said, "You'll understand someday," before quietly packing the bear into his worn leather briefcase. Other students had theories. Jessica insisted it was a good luck charm from his childhood. Mark thought it was just a quirky habit, meant to keep students engaged. But whenever anyone asked directly, he'd give the same cryptic response with that same sad smile. The mystery only deepened our fascination. Students from previous years would stop by just to see if Teddy Bear Tuesday was still happening. It became something of a legend in the economics department. Then one Tuesday in late October, he didn't show up. We sat in the lecture hall for 20 minutes, the usual chatter gradually fading to concerned murmurs. When the substitute teacher finally arrived, she found the teddy bear sitting alone on the desk where Professor Martinez always placed it. She looked uncomfortable when students asked about it, carefully moving it aside while avoiding eye contact. "Professor Martinez had an important appointment today," was all she would say, but her voice carried a weight that suggested something more significant. Later that week, Sarah, a senior student, pulled me aside. "I think you should know," she began quietly. "I found out about the teddy bear," she explained with the careful tone of someone sharing sacred information. 7 years ago, Professor Martinez's 6-year-old son, David, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Every Tuesday during treatment, his son would bring that very teddy bear to his chemotherapy sessions for comfort, clutching it tightly during the long hours of treatment. The little boy, even while fighting his own battle, worried about other children at the hospital. With the wisdom that sometimes comes to children facing impossible circumstances, David made his dad promise that if anything happened to him, he'd keep Teddy Bear Tuesday going so other kids at the hospital wouldn't be scared during their treatments. He lost his son after 14 months of fighting, hope, and heartbreak. But every Tuesday since then, Professor Martinez honors that promise. He visits the children's cancer ward with that same bear, reading stories, playing simple games, and bringing whatever comfort he can to young patients facing their own battles. And every Tuesday, he carries it to class first, keeping his promise to never let his son's Tuesday tradition die, carrying David's memory and love into everything he does.